One memory that I cherish is hiring movies and video games from my local video shop. So many of my teenage weekends were sorted thanks to video shops. I really miss those days. Video shops are long dead now, sadly, but one way to relive that long buried memory is to pay my local bookstore a visit. While I'm unable to find Super Nintendo games at my bookstore, I'm still able to get my horror fix in a horror novel, and as well, I can also discover other decent paperbacks waiting for me to explore along the way in the endless search when it comes to books. Over the time, I've built up quite the library of books that I've read, and I'm going to give you my top 5 books that I came across that I recommend.
Number 5.
American Psycho. American Psycho was written by Bret Easton Ellis in 1991. Patrick Bateman is a young, wealthy, successful investment banker that has a dark side. Patrick has an addiction to bloodlust, and it gets worse as time goes on. But is Patrick in a lot of trouble living out his fantasies, or is Patrick an elaborate daydreamer? American Psycho is such a thrilling, intense ride. Most of Bret Easton Ellis' books are set in the 80s, and he captures the scenes perfectly with his style of writing. Sex, drugs, violence, all the way. I was so captivated with the protagonist, Patrick Bateman, and as well, I was so interested in how his mind worked, I couldn't put this book down. For me, this novel is a masterpiece. Bret Easton Ellis immediately became one of my favourite authors after reading this novel. This was the only book that I bought that was hidden behind the counter, wrapped up in Glad wrap. I knew right away that I was going to fall in love with this book. This is an excellent read that won't leave you disappointed.
Number 4.
Pincher Martin. Pincher Martin was written by William Golding in 1956. Christopher Hadley is a temporary naval lieutenant of a military torpedo destroyer, which sinks, leaving Christopher as the only survivor. Christopher is washed ashore on a rocky island. Being trapped on a rock with only himself to talk to, Christopher experiences hallucinations which he dismisses, but for how long for? This book is brilliant, and I'll never forget the ending. It's a little bit on the depressing side, but it's a very interesting story. I love books about loners and drifters. While Pincher Martin's protagonist is isolated, I did enjoy reading about how Christopher was slowly going mad and reflecting on his past while on the rock, and not realizing where he actually is and what is happening around him. I remember finishing this book and it was all I could think about for a while. The ending is very surprising, and I still think about it today. Pincher Martin is written by the same author of Lord of the Flies, and I always like to find classic authors as I enjoy a great classic tale. I can't say enough good things about this book. Check it out for yourself.
Number 3.
It's So Easy. Duff's autobiography came out in 2013. I was so excited for this release. The book goes from Duff's early days living in his car to selling out stadiums a few years later. Reading about the early days of the band Guns N' Roses is always something special. One part of the book that I'll never forget is Appetite for Destruction debuted at 182 on the charts. Over a year later, the album spent 4 consecutive weeks at number 1. I find that so inspiring for some reason. Duff's autobiography is a fun rollercoaster ride of ups and downs. It's so cool that he put this book out for us to get a great insight of what it was like being in the world's most dangerous band. I have lots of favourite bands, Guns N' Roses being one of them. While growing up, November Rain was a very popular song. I remember this song being played in the top 40s every weekend for quite a while. I thought Duff looked the coolest in the band, and I still think so today. I've seen Guns N' Roses live 4 years ago, and I'm still getting over it. Duff sang a cover of the Misfits' Attitude. I have a lot of respect for Duff. Check this book out, it's a really good read.
Number 2.
Go Ask Alice by Anonymous came out in 1971. This book is read through journal entries. Alice struggles to find friends, starts hanging out with the wrong crowd, runs away from home and lives on the streets. During her time, she develops a drug addiction which gets worse and sad as it goes on, as she is so young. The reason I do recommend this book is just how fast things escalate for Alice. It shows the true hardship on what some drug addicts go through. It's a short book running at 139 pages, but it's very memorable. Growing up, the drug heroin was very popular in my area. I remember having to watch out for needles on the beach and even needles planted on train seats. It always amazed me that people would be addicted to heroin. Nowadays, I do like reading about drugs and personal experiences that people go through while experimenting with them. Go Ask Alice is the most realist novel I've came across, which I'm sure will surprise a lot of people. Check this one out.
Number 1.
Amityville Horror. Amityville Horror was written by Jay Anson in 1977. In 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his parents and his 4 siblings. He shot them with a .35 caliber rifle around 3 in the morning while they were sleeping. Ronald was sentenced to life in jail. A year later, George and Kathleen Lotz bought and moved into the house where the murders had taken place. Given the size of the house and how cheap it was for them, the Lotzes thought it would be perfect for Kathleen's 3 children. On 1976, George, Kathleen and the 3 children left the house frantically, leaving all their possessions behind, claiming the house was haunted. I bought this book not knowing a lot about the Amityville horror story, so I thought that this would be a great introduction more so than the movies. I still haven't seen the original movie. Let me know if it's worth checking out. This book freaked me out. Some of the events that happened to this family is mind-blowing. I had to put this book down a few times. Today people are 50-50 on the Amityville story if it's true or false. Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s story kept changing, same with the Lotzes throughout the years. My view is the book is definitely interesting and we'll never know the true story, but if you're a horror fan, do yourself a favor and check this book out as it's very creepy and decide for yourself if it's all true or fake. I hope you guys enjoyed these novel recommendations. I have to get back to reading so I can recommend you guys another top 5 for a later video. Later dudes!